Continuing now on America's Voice Live for this Tuesday, you may have noticed the economy is coming back, but it seems to be sputtering, recovering far slower than it was predicted. Small business are very concerned about the inflation, the operating costs, lackluster customer spending in some places. And while 54% of small business owners say they are still worried about potential policy changes affecting their companies, they remain optimistic. You know why? They're small business owners. If they weren't optimists, they wouldn't do it. With the Job Creators Small Business Index showing a 3% uptick in optimism from their most recent polling, that's good news. It means these people will likely stick it out. I want to bring in my next guest, Chief Communications Officer of the Job Creators Network, Elaine Parker. Elaine, good to see you again.
Nice to see you too, Steve.
So here it is. I mean, it seems to me that the small businesses, the backbone of America, truly, have taken a pounding through all this. The restaurants closed, the gyms closed, the bars shut down across so many states. It did tremendous damage, not just to the owners of these businesses, but to the millions of people that they employed. We have got to get small business back up and standing, but it just seems to me those on the left really don't like small business owners. They have this uppity attitude of they can do for themselves. They don't need government help, and that doesn't play very well some days. Where would you like to begin?
Well, there's a lot there that you put on the table. Let me just start with how small business owners feel right now, because we do a monthly poll called the Monthly Monitor, and it does show that our small business owners, we survey about 500 small business owners nationally, and our small business intelligence quotient, or our SBIQ, shows that in general, small business owners, they are optimistic right now. They feel good about the summer rush. They feel good about their states opening and getting away from some of the mandates and all of that with the pandemic. However, there are a lot of threats on the horizon. They are citing one of their biggest worries is inflation. More than a third of them cite inflation as their biggest worry, followed by rising costs. Those are all big issues for small businesses because many of them work on such small margins. And now we're looking at increases or threats of increases in taxes. The Biden administration wants to increase taxes on a million small businesses that are structured as C corporations by 33%. And Senator Ron Wyden, Democrat from Oregon, came out with legislation last week to curtail the small business 20% pass-through tax. That's been the biggest igniter of our pre-pandemic economy, which was the centerpiece of one of the centerpieces of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. Sure. And just propelled small business and our economy. And so to think that Democrats want to go after that is incredible. But then they also said, hey, while we're at it, why don't we double the size of the IRS and focus on small businesses and see how many more taxes we can find?
Well, and you just nailed it with Senator Ron Wyden. You see, the problem is that most of these senators are economically illiterate, and that's a problem. 90% of your Congress is attorneys. And I'm not taking shots at attorneys, but the point is they're not business owners. They haven't been down in there trying to figure out how to make payroll. They haven't been down there trying to figure out, well, if my electric bill does this or the price of gas goes up, it means my deliveries are going to go up. And so therefore my deliveries are expensive, or my restaurant, the stuff that I'm bringing in, the prices go up there, because it's not just, it's gas, it's beef, it's lumber, and the list goes on and on and on, Elaine. These people are facing an uphill climb. And the problem is, and I go back to this, and I believe this, many on the left do not like small business owners. They think that somehow they have this uppity attitude. They do not just jump in line, which they don't. And so a lot of these laws are put out there, these tax increases, these fees, these regulations, damage small business, and those in power don't seem to care much.
Well, I mean, I think the reality is, and again, I mean, your point is spot on. They can't control small businesses. That's the problem. Is they're a very disparate group, but they're very large in numbers. There's 30 million small business owners in this country. So look at the largest corporations, your Walmarts, your Amazons, all of those organizations, Microsoft, that employ so many people. It's one entity. And so they're much more controllable by politicians in Washington. But you can't control millions of restaurant owners or millions of dry cleaners. And they all are, entrepreneurs. They're looking for new and better innovative ways to make a profit so they can grow their businesses and hire employees and contribute back to their communities. And politicians don't like that. It's independent thinking.
Well, and here's the other thing and I come back to financial illiteracy, and I'm sorry, but I believe that about the majority of politicians in this country, and until they prove otherwise, I'm going to maintain that thought process. And that is, when you put these expenses on these companies, they have to pass it through. The consumer gets stuck with a bill. As you pointed out, the margin is so thin they can barely make it. And then you've got the government weighing in, giving $300 in extra pay to keep people at home. I couldn't tell you the number of times in recent days that either I've been to a restaurant and they're only taking about half their normal capacity because there's nobody there to work. So they don't want to overload the kitchen. And so you're keeping single moms at home that would normally be making a living, making a good living. You're keeping the business from flourishing the way it should because they're running at half capacity because they don't have the employees on site to get done what they need to get done. Those policies need to go away as well. I know it's going to go away in September, at least I hope it is, before Ron Wyden and some of the other folks come in and say, hey, let's extend the benefits for another 3, 4, 5 months, because I think that would just be devastating. Don't you?
I absolutely agree, and thankfully about 26 states have ended the unemployment benefits. But there's frankly a dignity of work, a dignity in work, and we are at a point where we're paying people to stay home. We are putting our small business owners in competition with government for labor. I just was told of a story today, as a matter of fact, of a man who owns a Friendly's restaurant in Delaware, in President Biden's hometown of Delaware, and he couldn't get anybody to come to work. His sign was up, $17 an hour to come and work at Friendly's, and he couldn't get enough people to come to work, and he had to shut the business down. That is happening. That is a real issue for small businesses, is that they can't get labor because people are making more money to stay home. And that's not the society that we've built here, and that has created probably the greatest economy and the greatest country on earth. I mean, that's why people do try to come here from other countries. It is because of the opportunity. It's equal opportunity that we can have here, not necessarily equal results.
Adam Smith was right then. His policies are right now. But again, you have people that don't understand how the economy works and how important small businesses are. I'll give you one more example, let you weigh in on this, because if a small business is a pass-through corporation, as you mentioned, whether it's an S Corp or a C Corp or however it's set up, an LLC, a pass-through corporation where the money flows through, and they say, oh my gosh, look at this, Steve made $1 million this year. No. Steve had a company that brought in $1 million, and he paid 7 employees. That brought it down to $500,000. Then he paid expenses and then shipping. And Steve made $125,000. Yeah, but he made $1 million. No. Right. He brought home a little over 10% of that. And that's just an example. That's a common example in this country. But look, it says $1 million on his tax return because these folks out there don't understand how business works. I'll give you the last word.
And that's just an example of the class warfare, as they can put out there, well, it's just for the business owners that are making over $400,000 a year. Well, you just hit the nail on the head. I mean, these small business owners, like yourself, like other small business owners, they reinvest those funds. I mean, we have several small business owners. One of them's in Pennsylvania. With his savings from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, he reinvested and doubled the size of his lab. He hired more people. He increased his bonus payout by 50%. And for the first time, because of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, he was able to offer a 401k to his employees. That is life-changing for employees because it offers them longevity and a career and all the benefits they need to stay in that job and grow that business with their employer. So I can't believe that Democrats are taking aim at the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which directly impacts small businesses. Yeah,
they also want to increase the inheritance tax, better known as the death tax, but that's a discussion for another day that will really hurt small businesses. Elaine, greatly appreciate you as always.
It's a success tax, Steve.
Right, it's a penalty. Why would you build a business if you know it's all going to get taxed when you die? Why would you build it? At some point you just say, I'm going to go sit on the beach and drink cocktails with little paper umbrellas in it all day, because why keep it all? It's going to get taxed away. My kids won't get it anyway. But like I said, story for another day. Elaine, always appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Steve.